Welcome. What I'd like to do is show you how to factor this expression by factoring out the GCF. So when we're looking at this expression, what we want to do is we want to factor out the largest terms that go into both of my kind of terms I have here, both of my monomials. So what I want to do is when I'm factoring something out, what we're doing is we're simplifying it by taking out what these share in common. So the first thing I always like to look at is look at the numbers and say, all right, out of these numbers, what do they share? Well, an 8 and a 10, well, this is negative 8, a negative 8 and a 10, you think about, well, what numbers do those share? What numbers evenly divide into both of them? Now, they're both even, so we know that 2 is definitely going to divide into both of them. But we want to find the greatest or the largest number that goes into both of them. So the next number that I know that goes into them is both 4. And you could say, well, I know 4 goes into negative 8 and 4 goes into, but 4 does not go into 10, does it? And so then another number maybe, all right, well, what about a number that goes into 10, which would be 5? But 5 doesn't go into 8. So therefore, I have to fall back on my numbers and say, all right, well, 2 was the greatest number that went into a negative 8 and a 10. So what I'm going to do is, since they both share that 2, I'm going to divide that out. So pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide a negative 8 by 2, which is just going to leave me a negative 4v plus 10 divided by 2, which would be a 5v squared. Now, usually students can understand that, and we can check our answer by using distributive property again to double check. 2 times negative 4v is a negative 8v. 2 times 5v squared is a 10v squared. So that's an easy way to check your work. Now, the next thing we want to do is see if they share anything with the v's. And a couple things you need to remember. V squared, right, equals v times v, where v to the first power is just going to equal a v. So when I'm dividing out, we got to remember what exactly our exponents are telling us to do. The other thing you can remember is, the rules of exponents. When I'm dividing two numbers with exponents, to divide them out, you got to make sure you're subtracting your exponents. So right now I look at this and I say, all right, they both share a v, and here comes a v squared. But what's the largest power of exponent that they share? Well, they don't share a v squared. Even though that is the largest exponent, this is only a v to the first power, meaning 1v. They don't share a v squared. However, I can factor out a v out of each term. So if I was to divide out a v squared, what I pretty much would be doing is factoring out this v. So it'd be v, which would be v squared. When divided out, you'd have 2 minus 1, which would give you v. When you factor a v out of the only v, there's only one of these v's. I'm saying v a lot, right? When you factor your v out, there's only one v there, so you're not going to have a v left. So if I factor out a 2v, I'll now just have a negative 4 plus 5, but since I factor out a 1v and there's 2 v's for a v squared, I'll just be left with v. So my final answer is 2v times square root, or not square root, times parentheses negative 4 plus 5v. Thanks.